Chapter 3. So what? Sophie managed to say when she finally found her voice. You're saying I'm an alien? She held her breath. Fitz erupted into laughter. Her cheek grew hot, but she was also relieved. She didn't want to be an alien. No, he said when he finally managed to compose himself. I'm saying you're an elf. An elf. The word hung in the air between them, a foreign object that didn't belong. An elf, she repeated. Visions of little peoples with pointy ears danced through her brain, and she couldn't help giggling. You don't believe me? Did you really expect me to? I guess not. He ran his hands through his hair, making it stick out in wavy spikes, kind of like a rock star. Could someone that good-looking be crazy? I'm telling you the truth, Sophie. I don't know what else to say. Okay, she agreed. If he refused to be serious, so would she. Fine. I'm an elf. Am I supposed to help Frodo destroy the ring and save Middle-earth? Or do I have to make toys in the North Pole? He let out a sigh, but a smile hid in the corners of his mouth. Would it help if I showed you? Oh, sure. This ought to be good. She folded her arms as he pulled out a slender silver wand with intricate carvings etched into the sides. At the tip, a small round crystal sparkled in the sunlight. Is that your magic wand? She couldn't resist asking. He rolled his eyes. Actually, it's a pathfinder. He spun the crystal and locked it into places with the silver latch at the top. Now, this can be dangerous. Do you promise you'll do exactly what I tell you to do? Her smile faded. That depends. What do I have to do? You need to take my hand and concentrate on holding on. And by concentrate, I mean you can't think about anything else, no matter what happens. Can you do that? Why? Do you want proof or not? She wanted to say no. He couldn't actually prove anything. What was he going to do? Whisk her away into some magic elfland? But she was curious. And really, what harm could come from holding someone's hand? She willed her palms not to sweat as their fingers laced together. Her heart did that stupid fluttery thing again, and her hand tingled everywhere their skin touched. He glanced over his shoulder, scanning the parking lot again. Okay, we're alone. We go on 3. You ready? What happens on 3? He shot her a warning look, and she scowled at him. But she bit her tongue and concentrated on holding his hand, ignoring her racing heart. Seriously, when did she become one of those silly girls? 1, he counted, raising the wand. Sunlight hit a faucet in the crystal, and a bright beam refracted toward the ground. 2. He tightened his grip. Sophie closed her eyes. 3. Fitz pulled her forward, and the warm tingling in her hand shot through her body like a million feathers swelling underneath her skin, tickling her from the inside out. She fought off a giggle and concentrated on Fitz. But where was he? She knew she was clinging to him, but it felt like her body had melted into goo, and the only thing keeping her from oozing away was a blanket of warmth wrapped around her. Then, faster than the blink of an eye, the warmth faded, and she opened her eyes. Her mouth fell open as she tried to take it all in. She might have even squeaked. She stood at the edge of a glassy river lined with impossibly tall trees, fanning out their wide emerald leaves among the puffy white clouds. Across the river, a row of crystal castles glittered in the sunlight in a way that would make Walt Disney want to throw rocks at his magic kingdom. To her right, a golden path led into a sprawling city, where the elaborate domed buildings seemed to be built from brick-sized jewels. Each structure was a different color. Snow-capped mountains surrounded the lush valley, and the crisp, cool air smelled like cinnamon and chocolate and sunshine. Places this beautiful weren't supposed to exist, much less appear out of thin air. You can let go of my hand now. Sophie jumped. She'd forgotten about Fitz. Her hand released his, and as the blood tingled in her fingertips, she realized how hard she'd been squeezing. She looked around. unable to make sense of anything she saw. The castle towers twisted like spun sugar, and something seemed oddly familiar about them, but she couldn't figure out what it was. Where are we? Our capital. We call it Internalia, but you might have heard it called Shangri-La before. Shangri-La, she repeated, shaking her head. Shangri-La is real? All of the lost cities are real, but now how do you picture them? I'm sure human stories rarely get anything right. Think of all the ridiculous things you've heard about elves. She had to laugh at that, and the sharp burst of sound echoed off the trees. It was so quiet there, just the gentle breeze brushing her face and the soft murmur of the river. No traffic, no chatter, no hammering, unspoken thoughts. She could get very used to the silence, but it felt strange too, like something was missing. Where is everyone? She asked, rising on her tippy toes to get a better view of the city. The streets were a ghost town. Fitz pointed to a domed building that towered over all the others. The green stones of its walls looked like giant emeralds, but for some reason the building sparkled less than all the others. It looked like a serious place, for serious things. See the blue banner flying? That means a tribunal is in process. Everybody's watching the proceedings. A tribunal? When the council, basically a royalty, holds a hearing to decide if someone's broken the law, they're kind of a big deal when they happen. Why? He shrugged. Laws are rarely broken. Well, that was different. Humans broke the law all the time. She shook her head. Was she really thinking of humans as something other? But how else could she explain where she was? She tried to wrap her mind around the idea, tried to force it to make sense. So, she said, cringing over her ridiculous next question, this is magic? Fitz laughed, a full body laugh, like it was the funniest thing he ever heard. She glared at him. It couldn't be that funny. No, he said when he regained control. Magic is a stupid idea humans came up with to try to explain things they couldn't understand. Okay, she said, trying to cling to the remaining strands of her sanity. Then how can we be here when 5 minutes ago we were in San Diego? He held the pathfinder up to the sun, casting a ray of light onto his hand. Light leaping, we hitched a ride on a beam of light that was headed straight here. That's impossible. Is it? Yeah. You need infinite energy for light travel. Haven't you heard of the theory of relativity? She thought she had stumped him with that one, but he just laughed again. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Who came up with that? Albert Einstein? Never heard of him, but he was wrong. He never heard of Albert Einstein? The theory of relativity was dumb? She wasn't sure how to argue. He seemed so ridiculously confident. It was unnerving. Concentrate harder this time, he said as he grabbed her hand again. She closed her eyes and waited for the warm feather sensation, but this time it was like someone turned on a hairdryer and sent the feathers scattering in a million directions, until another force wrapped around her and pulled everything back together like a giant rubber band. A second later, she was shivering from a cold ocean breeze, whipping her hair around her face. Fitz pointed to the massive castle in front of them, which glowed like the stones were carved from moonlight. How do you think we got here? Words failed her. It really felt like the light had passed through her, pulling her along with it. But she couldn't bring herself to say it, because if that were true, every science book she'd read was wrong. You look confused, he observed. Well, it's like you're saying, hey, Sophie, take everything you've ever learned about and take it away. Actually, that is what I'm saying. He flashed a smug grin. Humans do the best they can, but their minds can't begin to apprehend the complexities of reality. And what? Elves' minds are better? Of course. Why do you think you're so far ahead of your class? The slowest elf can still trump a human, even with no proper education." Her shoulders sagged as Fitz's words sank in. If he was right, she was just some stupid girl who knew nothing about anything. No, not a girl. An elf.